About 10,000 years ago, cats made a decision that changed history. Humans believed they had domesticated cats. But what if the opposite is true? It sounds unbelievable, but archaeology, genetics, and animal behavior research tell the same story. In this video, you'll discover how cat domestication really happened, why cats evolved differently from dogs, and why your cat still behaves like a wild hunter today. By the end, you'll understand why cats were never meant to be obedient, and why that may be their greatest evolutionary success. The biggest myth about cat domestication. If you asked 100 people how cats became our pets, most would tell the same story. Humans took wild cats, bred them over many generations, and slowly turned them into the domestic cats we know today. After all, that's exactly how dogs became our companions. It sounds completely reasonable, but science tells a very different story. When researchers compared the DNA of domestic cats with the African wildcat, Felis libica, they discovered something surprising. Even after living alongside humans for nearly 10,000 years, house cats are still remarkably similar to their wild ancestors. In fact, domestic cats can still interbreed with African wildcats today. That tells us cats have changed far less than most people realize. Now, look at dogs. After thousands of years of selective breeding, dogs evolved into more than 300 breeds, with dramatically different sizes, appearances, and behaviors. Cats are completely different. Most modern cat breeds differ mainly in their coat colors or appearance, while their hunting instincts and independent nature remain largely unchanged. That's why many evolutionary biologists believe cats were never actively domesticated in the same way as dogs. Instead, they changed just enough to live alongside humans without giving up what made them successful predators. And that's exactly why your cat still prefers making its own decisions instead of waiting for your commands. But if humans didn't truly turn wildcats into pets, what made those first wildcats choose to come closer to us in the first place? Cats didn't come looking for humans. They came looking for mice. Cats and humans didn't come together because of friendship. They came together because of farming. Around 10,000 years ago, people began settling down and building the first grain stores in the Fertile Crescent. Before long, those stores attracted huge numbers of mice and other rodents. For humans, it was a serious problem. For African wildcats, it was an endless buffet. Instead of roaming for miles every night in search of prey, they could simply stay near these villages and find more food than ever before. Archaeologists believe the wildcats that were least afraid of people gradually started appearing around human settlements. No one captured them. No one trained them. They were simply doing what every predator does. They followed the food. Humans quickly noticed the benefits as well. The more mice the cats hunted, the more grain was saved. In biology, this kind of relationship is called mutualism, a partnership where both sides benefit, but neither controls the other. And that's where the relationship between cats and humans truly began. Not with commands, not with obedience, but with shared benefits. The signs of that relationship are still easy to see today. Your cat doesn't do things because you've told it to. From the very beginning, its ancestors weren't trying to serve humans. They stayed because living alongside us worked in their favor. But living near humans was only the first step. The smartest decision cats made came next, and it changed their future forever. The smartest decision cats ever made. At first, wildcats came closer to humans for one simple reason: to hunt mice. But over many generations, some cats discovered that living near people offered more than just food. Human settlements had fewer predators, reliable water sources, and safer places to raise kittens. Wildcats that were too aggressive or too fearful tended to stay away. but those that could tolerate human presence had a better chance of surviving and passing on their genes. Imagine two wildcats. One runs away the moment it sees a person. The other stays just a few seconds longer, catches one more mouse, and then leaves. Neither cat is trying to be friendly, but one finds more food and has a better chance of passing on its genes. Repeat that process over thousands of generations, and the entire population begins to change without anyone deliberately breeding them. Biologists call this process self-domestication, and that's one of the biggest differences between cats and dogs. Dogs were selectively bred by humans for specific jobs. Cats, on the other hand, evolved to live alongside people while keeping the instincts that made them successful hunters. That's why your cat can trust you completely and still ignore your commands. Throughout their evolution, cats learned to build trust with humans, not obedience. But here's the most surprising part. While cats changed only a little, humans changed far more to adapt to cats. Humans changed more than cats did. Over thousands of years, cats changed just enough to live alongside humans. But humans changed even more. At first, cats were simply mouse hunters living around early villages. Over time, they became an important part of human life not only because they protected food supplies, but because they took on a much deeper cultural role. One of the best examples comes from ancient Egypt. Imagine a small predator that once roamed the wild, quietly hunting rodents. A few thousand years later, that same animal appears on temple walls, in statues, and is closely associated with the goddess Bastet. Cats had become far more than simple pest controllers. Many researchers describe this as co-evolution. Cats influenced the way humans lived, while humans created environments that became increasingly suitable for cats. Both species changed, but in very different ways. And that process is still happening today. We buy scratching posts so cats won't scratch the furniture. We build cat shelves so they can climb and watch from above. Some people even arrange entire rooms around their cat's daily routine. The interesting part is, cats never asked us to do any of that. We do it because we've learned what makes them feel safe, comfortable, and secure. Perhaps that's the clearest sign that over the past 10,000 years, it wasn't just cats adapting to humans. Humans have been adapting to cats too. But despite all those changes, a cat's mind still works much like that of its wild ancestors. And genetics helps explain why. Your cat is still almost a wild animal. After living alongside humans for nearly 10,000 years, you might expect cats to have become completely different animals. But genetics tells a different story. When scientists compared the genomes of domestic cats with African wild cats, they found that most genetic changes were linked to coat color, appearance, and a reduced fear of humans. Meanwhile, the genes responsible for hunting instincts and natural behavior remained almost unchanged. That's why many researchers consider cats one of the least domesticated animals. And you can see the evidence every day. Your cat still climbs to high places to watch its surroundings. It still scratches to mark its territory. It still stalks a toy as if it were hunting a real mouse. Even those long naps are part of an ancient predator's strategy to conserve energy for the next hunt. None of these behaviors are strange. They're the result of millions of years of evolution, far longer than the 10,000 years cats have spent living with humans. That's also why expecting a cat to behave like a dog often leads to disappointment. Cats didn't evolve to wait for commands. They evolved to assess their surroundings and make their own decisions. So, if cats have kept almost all of their wild instincts, why do so many of them choose to sleep beside us, seek out our company, and form such strong bonds with people? The answer lies in the trait that changed the most. Not their instincts. The way they communicate with us. Why cats chose to trust humans. If cats have kept most of their wild instincts, then what actually changed? The way they communicate with us. Behavioral research shows that cats use more social signals with humans than they do with other adult cats. Take the familiar meow, for example. In the wild, adult cats rarely meow to each other. Instead, they mostly use it to get a human's attention. The same is true when your cat greets you with its tail held high, rubs against your legs to share its scent, or gives you a slow blink. These are all signs that your cat feels safe enough to build a social bond with you. And this isn't just based on observation. A study from Oregon State University found that many cats form a secure attachment to their caregivers, similar to the attachment seen in young children. That suggests the relationship between cats and humans is about more than food. It's also about safety and trust. That's why many cat behavior experts prefer the word trust over obedience. A cat can trust you completely and still choose not to follow your commands. Those two things are not contradictions. So maybe it's time to rethink the story. For the past 10,000 years, cats didn't evolve to please humans. They evolved to make humans want to care for them. And that may be the greatest evolutionary success cats have ever achieved. So, did cats really domesticate humans? So, after everything we've learned, did cats really domesticate humans? From a scientific point of view, the answer is no. Domestication is an evolutionary process, and neither cats nor humans controlled the evolution of the other. But from a behavioral perspective, the story becomes much more interesting. Over the past 10,000 years, cats have changed very little. They remain independent predators that prefer making their own decisions instead of waiting for commands. What changed was their ability to live alongside humans. And what about us? We install window perches so our cats can watch the world outside. We buy scratching posts to protect our furniture. We build shelves for them to climb. We adjust our routines, rearrange our homes, and make time every day just to play with them. Not because cats demanded it, but because we've learned what makes them feel safe and happy. Perhaps that's what makes this relationship so unique. Neither species truly conquered the other. Instead, both adapted to each other in very different ways. And maybe that's why cats have always been different from every other companion animal. They don't see us as masters. They don't see us as fellow cats. They simply choose to stay with the people they trust. So maybe the real question was never, who domesticated whom? Maybe the better question is, why did a wild predator choose to share its life with humans? If there's one lesson from this 10,000-year journey, it's this. Understanding cats isn't about changing them. It's about changing the way we see them by understanding why they behave the way they do. And once you do, many of the behaviors that once seemed confusing suddenly start to make sense. Now I'd love to hear from you. What's one thing your cat does that you understand a little better after watching this video? Share your story in the comments. And if you enjoy exploring the science behind cat communication and cat psychology and behavior, be sure to subscribe to Cat Decoded. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.